The world and mythology of The Lord of the Rings is one of my favorites of all time. I've been in love with this world since as long as I can remember, and I was really excited when they announced that they were going to make new movies, including 2 new live-action ones, and the first project of this new Lord of the Rings era, a decade after the Hobbit movies, which is The Rings of Power. I was very excited to see that this world was going to get expanded in new and different ways. However, things didn't turn out quite the way I expected with The Rings of Power. I've talked before about this show. I do not like it at all. I didn't like season 1. I especially didn't like season 2, even though it had more redeeming qualities. So I was skeptical with Hollywood ruining one of my favorite franchises of all time. But that is not the case with The War of the Rohirrim. This is the first of a new series of movies they're going to produce, with 2 other confirmed ones, including The Hunt for Gollum, which I'm really excited about since it's going to bring some of the old cast back after the Hobbit movies and after the original trilogy, which set the standard for this amazing series of movies. But The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim is a very special case because I was very excited when I found out this movie was going to be animated, and not only animated, but also from a Japanese animation studio. It is no secret if you follow this channel for a long time that I'm a really big fan of anime. I just absolutely love the style of Japanese animation, including the stories and the way they frame these characters and make beautiful scenes out of just the traditional animation style mixed with modern themes. I think it's just phenomenal when this movie was announced. And I gotta say, I was not disappointed. This movie just slaps on every single front. And I was very surprised when people didn't really agree with me. People pointed out countless flaws in the movie. They said from the pacing, to the characters, to the protagonist, Héra, to a lot of different things. I honestly think all of that just goes away because I might be biased, but I just absolutely love the animation. I love the story, the world. And I think they do a really good job with this universe because it's not only just about continuing the story of, the Ring or, the Rings of Power, which focus too much on, I guess, comparing itself to the original. And I feel like with this movie, they try to do something completely unique the same way Star Wars is doing with a couple of its properties, where they're setting their own identity with the movie set in the same world of the original, instead of trying to compare and trying to live up to the original and just trying to copy every single thing from the characters' themes and quote-unquote making it rhyme with the original trilogy.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Yes, I'm talking about you Star Wars episodes 7, 8, and 9. But at the end of the day, yeah, this movie's great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the basic rundown of everything that I liked about the movie and explain what are the best things about the film, because there's just so much about it. And I'm going to go also to try to clear some misconceptions about the movie of people who haven't seen it, who've seen some of the criticisms, because I don't agree with most of them. And we'll get into that when we explore some of the characters. So the movie takes place 183 years before the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, so that's before The Hobbit, I guess, like 50 years before in the timeline. I'm gonna have to double check on that, so if you're a Lord of the Rings nerd, don't get mad at me for trying to mix up the lore. But it takes us back to Edoras, which hasn't really changed that much in 200 years. It's pretty much the same location from the original movies, and I think that's great. I think it's kind of like a nice nostalgic callback to that era. And the ruler of Edoras of the Rohirrim, before they became the Rohirrim, is Helm Hammerhand, who is just an absolute badass of a character. I gotta say that right now. Helm Hammerhand wins the prize for the Giga Chat of the Year, because in this movie, he just absolutely shines. I think telling that story, which is based on an appendix on one of the Lord of the Rings books from J.R.R. Tolkien, I think it was great the way they characterized this character. Brian Cox's voice as Hammerhand is absolutely amazing. And he is one of the protagonists of the movie, the other one being Héra, his daughter. And she is the main focus of the film. The movie focuses completely on her journey from beginning to end, and I think she's a great character. I think she's badass. She does a lot of amazing things throughout the movie. And although sometimes it falls into Mary Sue territory, I agree with that. I feel like it also does enough for her character to make her stand out on her own. It reminds me more like a Disney princess than other things. I feel like that aspect of the movie, focusing way too much on Héra, shines in some parts, and other ones that kind of drags the movie. I think it just focuses on so many things in a short period of time. 2 hours is, I feel like it's not enough to tell a complete story. The movie could have, if it was like 3 hours like the original movies, I think it would have had much more space to flesh out some of the other characters, or maybe some of her brothers, before focusing on the centering plot of the movie. But I think it was really well done. Also, this is a good time to mention that this video is going to contain spoilers, because right now I'm going to discuss the plot, so if you haven't seen the movie, skip ahead. But we're going to go discuss the beginning of the movie towards the end, because I thought the plot was fascinating. So the plot of The War of the Rohirrim focuses on a dispute between Helm Hammerhand and another faction that tries to marry the son Wulf to his daughter Héra. So after shit hits the fan and Wulf's father Freka dies, Wulf goes into hiding and vows to take revenge against Helm Hammerhand for killing his father after the dispute over, who's going to marry Héra and what's going to happen with the lineage of these two families. So that sets off the entire plot. They become enemies, both factions. And there's a couple battles in the beginning and middle of the movie that start to advance the plot. And it takes place over several months or years. So it's not something that takes place over, like an afternoon or something like that. It gives enough time to, have the characters change, to explore them. For example, it begins when Freka dies, and Héra has time to explore her character, to develop. It goes back to flashbacks of her childhood, which are very emotional and very amazing, especially mixed with the animation. And I'm gonna get more into the animation and the art style later, which, of course, I love it because it's anime. But everything surrounding the plot is just, I feel like it's really well executed. And like I said before, this movie does a lot to stay original to its own story, with just minimal callbacks to some of the other movies. But it does focus a lot on Helm's Deep. From, the Two Towers, probably one of the most epic sequences in the entire history of film. I feel like the Battle of Helm's Deep and Two Towers was just amazing. And this one is kind of a love letter to that, but beyond that, it doesn't really focus on any of the other overarching lore of the Lord of the Rings, or the story, or any of, like, for example, Sauron or all that. The villain is a very grounded character, and that is Wulf. I feel like Wulf, his entire motivation in the film, his madness, his descent into madness, and how he starts to just do very immoral things in the pursuit of revenge, in the pursuit of first trying to marry Héra and then doing things out of blind rage. I feel like it was very well executed. It's just one of those villains who is very intense and just becomes this unhinged character who starts going into very dark, morally dark areas of morality. And this contrast to Héra and her value towards her own family, her value towards protecting her brothers and her father, and that is something that is reflected. I feel like the family of Helm Hammerhand is just kind of a representation of what is important in life, which is family, which is protecting your honor, those who are your loved ones, and everything around that. So I feel like it was very well reflected throughout his character. And the thing I like the most, because I'm going to focus more on Helm Hammerhand right now, because he's just probably one of my favorite characters in the whole Lord of the Rings mythos, and especially after this movie. I feel like his values grow a lot because he also changes as a character. Like I said before, the movie takes place over the course of several years, probably from the beginning of the movie and then towards the whole winter in the second half. I feel like his growth as a character and his development just allows him to, focus on his mistakes, to learn, and that is despite him being such a badass character on screen. I swear to God, there were some sequences where I was just left with my jaw open because of how badass Helm Hammerhand is. For example, in the entrance of Helm's Deep, well, before it was known as Helm's Deep, he just literally just beats a group of men with his bare fists and just, like, stays frozen in one position at the end of the battle, and that's basically the way he dies. That's the way he goes. And I was just so floored at how badass that moment is. I cannot love this character enough. So I don't know why people say that the movie doesn't focus enough on him. I feel like it focuses enough on letting him shine and also letting the movie breathe, while also focusing back on Héra, focusing on the main plot between Wulf and the rest of the characters. But I just feel like those sequences with them were just amazing from the very beginning. And the whole sequence in Helm's Deep happens after the first battle in Addiss, where, they get invaded by the forces controlled by Wulf, like all the other mercenaries in Middle-earth, which is pretty awesome because it focuses a little on those kind of characters. And the entire battle was amazing. Both of Héra's brothers die. Also, I want to focus on the emotional impact of these scenes. I feel like it was very well executed. I love the way that they make you try to understand these characters, try to empathize with them, and then when they get killed, I think you really feel their deaths and you want to avenge them. So after the shit hits the fan, they bounce over to Helm's Deep, where they stay throughout the whole winter. So they're being sieged by Wulf's forces, and after a couple of months, the final battle ensures, which is really intense, like the first one. And I love that entire sequence. I think the movie just handles the action phenomenally, and the animation is just amazing. I feel like there were some sequences, especially in the first battle when it's night and there's like fire arrows and I think it was just really, really well animated. And that's something I want to commend with the film. The movie also has a very satisfying ending. I really enjoyed the way it wraps everything up. And it's just kind of a feel-good movie with a happy ending despite the character suffering from losses. That's more Hollywood-like. And the movie by the end also teases characters like Saruman and Gandalf, like they're members of the Avengers in the future Marvel movie. But I thought it was okay. Like, it's not, like, the movie was going to have some kind of connection for the fans. But I didn't mind that. I was just like, okay, this is more Hollywood's influence in the film. And yeah, I say this as somebody who's very biased, as a really huge Lord of the Rings fan, a huge anime fan. Or maybe I'm just tired of the Rings of Power's pace, which was slower than a turtle on tranquilizers. Maybe that's another factor of how much I love this movie. I just needed a really big change of pace. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it. I think the movie's phenomenal. Everything from the animation, the characters. So as a final score, I'm going to give it a 98 out of 100. I really think it's that good. And that is my biased opinion, is, like I said before. But I think this movie's going to age really well with time. I feel like people are going to appreciate it more as the years go by. Because right now people love to criticize, but for me, I was just left with a very, very big smile on my face after seeing The Lord of the Rings countless times. And this one just paying tribute to that world in a very amazing and respectful way. Unlike the series, which try to do too much and just do things that have nothing to do with The Lord of the Rings. And I feel like this one just has a much more respectful way of exploring this world. But anyways, those are all my thoughts on The War of the Rohirrim. Watch the movie and form your own opinion. And yeah, let me know in the comments what do you think about the movie. So anyways, that's all for today. Have a great day.